Hello, the random people of the internet. My name is the Lord. My uterus is not about to explode, Tokai.
And my name is Adaj Nagini, and they call me Nagi, and my uterus is not about to explode anymore.
Yay, we have functioning uterus. And this is episode 2 of Millennial Monsters, where we talk about anything and everything that we're into, what we're getting into, and just what's on our mind. Today, I decided for the second episode, we will talk about hobbies. That can be anything: drawing, singing, playing games, playing tabletop games, playing board games, and, and really anything that you like to do. So,
Yeah.
personally, I am what I dub as a hobby whore. I pick up a lot of hobbies, which is very expensive, by the way.
Mhm.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't. But I also like, hey, I'm an adult. I have adult money. So fuck you.
Well, I mean, I kind of do something similar, so I totally get it. Granted, most I cycle between three things at minimum, which is music, drawing, and writing.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, I did try to pick up knitting, but I'm like, I don't have the patience for this.
It's very knitting is a very slow process.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm probably gonna fuck up this. I am trying to add some ambiance
Oh, ambiance.
because adding it post recording is terrible. So we'll see how this works. Um, but yeah, so I am a very big fan of just a lot of things and doing a lot of things. So I end up spending way too much and then not having an outlet to do those things.
Right.
So my current is like, I love physical products in general. I like buying something and holding it in my hand.
Yeah.
So versus like digital stuff like skins in a game or something like that, um I like board games. I like I have all of the fifth edition D&D books. Um I have to get certain copies of other books. No, that was distracting. If you heard the music, sorry. Uh, but yeah. So I love physical copies. I also love getting limited edition things. Unfortunately, at the
Yeah.
time for my D&D books, I couldn't get the limited edition D&D books because they were too expensive at the time. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, I'm a big card game guy. I'm a big tabletop guy, and I was looking at Warhammer, but that's kind of expensive, and I don't want to get into that
Yeah,
because
there's
it's so much. It
yeah,
so
there's someone I watch who paints the
and
Warhammer stuff. Yeah.
it's
It's
like
pricey.
it's the buying, the building, and the painting, which all seem really fine, right?
Right.
But the problem is, it's like I am a very competitive person, so like if I were to get into Warhammer, I would want to play against people.
Yeah.
Each effective army is about $1,000
Oh my god.
because like a character. So like in the armies, there are like the squads and then like solo
Yeah.
characters. Some of the squads you need like 6 or 7 of them in the army, and like a squad of like 4 units, let's say, is like
Yeah.
$120. And then when you get to the
Man.
big beefy boys, they're like 300, $400.
Yeah.
So I would have to shell out all that money, and then I would have to put them together, and then I would have to buy specific paint because you can't just use any other regular paint, which you
Oh
can.
no.
Nobody really cares except for people who are assholes. But
Well, I mean, and
also,
if you want to
mhm,
enjoy looking at it, like you
yeah,
use like
you
the
buy the
regular paint.
good paint.
Yeah.
Because why would fucking
Yeah.
sitting there with your fucking $180 figure and you're like, I'm gonna use fucking dollar store paint. It's like, get the no, get out of here.
No.
That was like me as a kid when Bob Ross would come on. I would have my little dollar store paint set trying to paint like him, and I'm like,
Mhm.
something's wrong here. I don't know why it doesn't look like that. It's because it's not real paint,
Well,
you
all
know?
you needed to do is paint a happy little tree, you know.
Yeah, and put the body under that tree. Oh, it's just, oh, it's so bad. And then like D&D is like just a set price right then and there. You can buy figures, you can get figures custom made. I definitely want to get a 3D printer to start making these
Yeah,
figures because I just love D&D in general. Uh,
right.
I'm also into anime, manga, comic books. I, I I would say that like video games would be a hobby at this point,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I think it's like that boomer mentality that's in us millennials. It's where we went outside.
Yeah.
We went outside at some point. Did we stay out there
Yeah.
long? Yes. Were we
Yeah,
back
I
before?
guess, yeah.
Like I remember getting sent outside and like, oh, don't come back till the street lights come on. And I was like,
See,
adventure
it
time.
was it was like that for me until my dad got a home computer.
Mm-hmm.
Which my mom was like, absolutely not, and she was so upset because, uh obviously it couldn't be as bad as it was today because once you back then, if you wanted to be on the internet, nobody could use the phone.
Yeah, you couldn't sneak on the
And
internet either
nope.
because it made the noise.
Yeah.
It's like, oh shit, oh god damn it.
Welcome. You've got mail.
You got mail. You got mail. You got mail. You. Oh no! Shut up. And then Clippy would show up and then judge you for
Oh,
everything you
fucking
did.
Clippy. Yeah.
Clippy would judge you for every single thing that you did. And it's like, do you need help this? Do you need help that? Do you need help writing a ransom note? Clippy, no. Clippy, stop, please. Uh, me
For
and
those of you in the audience who are not sure what Clippy is, back in the day, I believe it was in Microsoft Word or something, there'd be a little paperclip, animated paperclip in the bottom who is like a help sprite. Um, Kind of like sometimes Navi the fairy, annoying as we've
uh,
stated, but
it's, it was
still,
so bad. But
yeah,
like with my wife, I was talking about we were just talking about something in general because she was on stream and she has a lot of younger viewers,
yeah,
adult age, but younger viewers that don't know
yeah,
a lot of shit that goes on. And we were talking, and I'm like, you know, my generation was the generation that kind of birthed the internet. Like
yeah,
Gen X created the internet, but millennials birthed it because we were there. And it's like that
yeah.
fucking meme from Lord of the Rings. I was there. It's like, yeah, I was there at the birth of the internet. I was there when we had to sit through fucking Mavis Bacon. Fuck that
Oh
bitch.
man.
Fuck her. Fuck her so bad. I hate her.
We were there for the very first ever cyberbullying incident.
Yes.
Um, Monica Lewinsky, also known in some circles as Patient Zero.
Mm-hmm.
for that. Which it blew my mind, and it still blows my mind that she's like a footnote in things. But it was a very real thing that happened that I was alive for, and so I'm like, oh,
that
this is where we are now.
that that reminded me. Like, it's slightly off topic, but the fact there was a image and it was like millennials like drinking coffee and eating a donut while like the world is burning behind them, and it just said
Yeah,
millennials sitting through 9/11, Y2K, um, two financial crises, the imminent the imminent threat of World War III. And it's just like,
yeah,
what are we going to have on Apocalypse Bingo today?
exactly,
We lived
exactly.
through we lived through a plague, two recessions, like 8 end of the world scares.
Yeah,
It's like I'm only 35 and I've been through all this shit. Like, oh, what? Like,
yeah.
I can't do it. It's just like I can't do this shit sometimes.
Well, you could say that that also kind of cycles back to our topic in that we may end up as a generation pick up a bunch of hobbies because in a way, depending on how like simple the hobby is, it's kind
Mhm.
of like easy to dissociate into that hobby. That
Yes.
way you don't have to think about.
There was a lot of things about, like, there was an article I read a while ago, and it was just like, millennials are spending too much money on childish things, and it's like, yes and no at the same time, because a part of it is psychosomatic about recapturing the childhood we didn't have.
Yeah,
Because if there's any Gen Z listeners here, we were the generation that was forced to take on adult responsibilities from a very young age.
yeah,
Like, for me, example, I had to raise my 6 siblings. I'm the oldest of 7, and I've been
yeah,
working since I was 10 years old, earning pocket
yeah,
change here, doing this, doing that. And so hobbies are some of the best outlets that we have to disassociate. And
yeah,
it's better if your hobby isn't competitive, because that's mainly what I'm into. I'm into competition. I love going against people, no matter what it is. If it's card games and video games, board games, if I can go against somebody, I'm happy.
yeah,
Uh, but all like hobbies don't have to be that. It's just like anything you do that can ease your mind or be fun to you is a hobby. So don't fucking let anybody say that, oh, that's not a hobby or your hobby's weird. Unless like you do some weird thing. Like I don't know. Like you collect scabs, that's not a hobby. Don't do that. Don't
yeah.
don't do that. Don't no, that's weird.
Namai wa Akira Yoshikage.
The first time I ever heard of like collecting scabs and
Yeah.
was a manga called Life,
Of course
and
it was a manga.
it was a manga, of course, and the main character was just this girl in high school getting bullied, which high
Yeah.
school high school being bullied is a thing. It has always been a thing.
Yeah.
And she was just super depresso espresso all the time. And like when she finally get home, like after she got pushed over or whatever, she would take her scabs off and put them in a photo album. And I'm just like, huh. And then I found out people really do that.
Yeah.
Don't
I
do
can
that.
see that.
Don't
I can
don't
see
do
that.
that.
Which by the way, before anyone like goes crazy, I know it was nail clippings for this particular guy. It's just this sort of hobby made me think of that.
Ah. Oh God, let's not do that. That's fucking dude. Stop,
uh
stop that shit. Get some help.
I will say it did make the plot line interesting of like how his murderous intent was
Hmm.
equivalent to how quickly his fingernails grew in. But that's neither here nor there
No,
for this.
that's for the the psychoanalyzing episode
Yeah.
where we talk about the human
Uh
mind and why it's so fucked.
oh boy.
um, yeah, because
But
that's a whole 3-part episode. Fuck that.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
hobbies.
Yeah, so hobbies also because I'm more of the non competitive hobbyist. Um
Mhm.
but I tend to hyperfixate on different hobbies. For example, right now, I'm really into writing again.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh I have which by the way, I have never played a single game of Call of Duty in my life. Okay. But I have a what
Congratulations.
is now 34,482 word fan fiction that's an Omega verse Call of Duty fan fiction. Do not judge me.
Yeah. Okay. Hmm.
but
Well,
um but yeah, I managed to do that in a week in my free time. This kind of goes back to the whole like dissociating thing in that it's one of those things, at least writing is one of those things you can dive into and kind of like reading, which is
yeah.
also another hobby, you know.
Which is a
Um
fine hobby indeed.
yeah.
Read a fucking book.
Uh oh yeah.
Unless you're
Or,
like me, who can't read for too long without getting sleepy, which I found out is a part of ADHD.
see that's how so honestly the this particular fandom, not the side of the fandom with like the dude bros who are like, yeah, war propaganda, let's shoot them up, but the ones who like making ghost and soap kiss. That's the fandom has kind of got me back into reading because thread fix are nice short form things that have kind of eased me back into reading more long form stuff.
Mm-hmm.
um Even so, like I kind of agree, sitting down and focusing on an entire book
That shit is
um
difficult.
is still problematic. Yeah, even if the content is good,
Is
because I
great.
still need to,
Like
yeah,
it could
because
be great, but it's rough.
yeah, because I still need to finish The Siren by Tiffany Reese. One of my friends bought it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those it's a BDSM novel,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like not
Is it
we
accurate?
yeah,
Like
for the most part, like in dealing with kind of like the borderline things, not like 50 Shades of Grey, because that's not
that's not real.
for yeah,
That's
because
over
first of all,
exaggerated.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure we can all agree if Christian Grey was not a millionaire and lived in a trailer, that would be an entirely different story, if we want to be honest here.
Oh, that
But no.
is. That's okay. So funny, funny side with that. My best friend, she loves reading really like, not it's not always smutty books,
Yeah.
but it's like shit that would be written on Wattpad,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, it's always the Mary Sue character who doesn't know that she's a Mary Sue.
Yeah.
And if anybody who doesn't know what a Mary Sue is, it's typically a female character in a book who has some type of power or ability that makes her overpowered, but she hasn't
Yeah.
found it yet. So like
Ah.
Candace from the Hunger Games, she's a Mary Sue. She's just good, right?
Yeah.
Like she doesn't really have to deal with anything because she like, so for her character she's an amazing archer.
Yeah.
It's just that's her. That's what she does.
Right.
And she's really good at it. Nobody can stop her, and that's why she lasts throughout all the books and all that other shit. Um, a lot of people like reading those characters, and in some way, I'm like, I'm the same because I am into a genre called lit RPG,
Hmm.
which is literary RPGs. It's basically isekai for novels.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my main characters tend to be very powerful, or one of the most powerful. But it's written in a way that's like, okay, sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss. But she's into these stories where it's like, it's always the girl gets found by the super handsome, tall CEO, billionaire playboy who so happens to find this one girl who rejects him at first and he's just obsessed with her after.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I hate that shit. I hate
Well,
that shit so much. I get why a lot of people like it. I do. I understand.
yeah.
It's like why I like isekai. It's that power fantasy of just
Yeah.
being an unstoppable badass motherfucker who just takes no shit from nobody.
Yeah.
But there's levels to it. You kind of have to ease your way into it. And
Yeah.
it's just like it for her stories, it goes like 0 to 100 so fast. So fast.
Yeah.
It's like I get it because it's such a short form of writing. Like again, these stories are like on Wattpad. So like you can't have
Yeah.
an entire book to develop characters. I get it, but
Yeah.
it's always that same trope that I'm just like,
Well, and
hmm.
there's something to be said for it. I know that like I kind of shat on 50 Shades of Grey a second ago as if I didn't read like two and a half of those books.
I
um
I I
but
did the same.
I didn't finish book three. I couldn't for some reason. Maybe it was the ADHD caught me by that point.
Probably.
Um
Probably your
but
hyperfixation on it died.
yeah. And so but that being said, this book is from the different perspective of like the main character is an experienced woman. She's a successful woman with money who had an ex dom that they're, as far as the scenes go, I'm pretty sure their relationship was okay, but it went into like issues, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time ago, like issues with aftercare or the legality of impact play,
Mm-hmm.
just different stuff like that. Whereas an outsider, who is the young man who lived with the main character because he was going through college, and so she kind of helps him out by having a place to stay so he can focus on his studies. He kind of helps her out by kind of helping around the house. It's a not sexual relationship there, but he does have a crush on her. However, because he's a younger guy,
Mm-hmm.
she's like, yeah, no. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So that's just kind of the difference in that, 50 Shades as is that extravagance aspect of it with kind of a lack of realism to it, which most people don't read like fiction for the realism of it
Yeah.
anyway, versus some kind of like down to earth address of, yes, this is fiction, but it kind of comes at it from an angle of, realistically, this is what it's going to look like for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not like what it's going to look like, because obviously, you want to play with safe people, but I mean like just the issues of it.
Yeah.
um so anyway, that's kind of there, but that, again, cycling back to the point, I didn't finish it because, again, it's kind of hard to sit still and read a book. But I will say that particular author is amazing. I did go to one of her writing seminars before,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. So if that's someone, if you're looking for someone to read, I definitely recommend her, even though I only read half of one of her books.
Well, so that's it. It's an interesting segue into what our topic is because I didn't have a plan for talking about specific things, but
Yeah.
if we were, reading would be a fine thing. Right? Yeah, let's
Yeah.
talk about reading and writing in general right now.
Yeah.
There was a book that I read that I actually managed to read from cover to back,
Yeah.
and it was called Mistborn.
Huh. I think I've heard
Um,
of that.
it's an older series. Hold on, let me just find the. Oh wow, there's a lot of books. I read up to. I read the second book. It Mistborn: The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. There's currently 6 books in the series. I read the first one. The problem, like, it's a great book, right? It's one of my favorite reads of all time, is just because of how good it was.
Yeah.
The problem, um, not spoiling, but kind of spoiling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, like the main character, something happens to like he has a really cool like it was a cool action scene because action scenes aren't really easy to write.
No, they are not.
So like the main power in Mistborn is it's sort of like Avatar,
Yeah.
but with metal. It's sort of like Avatar. So it's not like the full metal bending and earth bending type thing.
Yeah.
There's a special race of people in this world that if they consume a certain type of metal, they get a certain ability.
Oh, I see. I see.
So two of the main ones is copper and iron, I believe they were. If they
Yeah.
consume copper, they can pull metal to them.
Oh,
If they consume iron, they can push metal away.
that's an interesting concept.
And a lot of the people who have these powers can only use one. Like their bodies can only process one of the powers.
Yeah.
Um, then there's a special metal. I don't remember what it was called. It's like X something. It's not a real metal, I don't think, but I think it was a metal for this world. And
Yeah.
this metal basically affects time space. So like
Yeah.
they become the Flash for a very short amount of time.
Oh,
Where they move faster and they can see into the future. But like a few
right.
seconds into the future. So like
Yeah.
if you were fighting somebody using this metal, you would probably lose like horribly. Because they can see like 5 seconds into the future and be able to process it in their head, which normally if you were able to see into the future ahead of you, your mind could not actually take the stress and pressure from that
Yeah.
because it's something so unfathomable that you wouldn't understand. But for
Right.
this world, they could. And the scene that I fell in love with the book because it was one of the last scenes in the book. Like the whole book was building up an army to fight the evil king, who has
Yeah.
imprisoned an entire race of people, and slavery, racism. Like it touches on those topics. Um, the main character, he ends up getting surrounded by the king's men, who are inquisitors, and
Yeah.
they have they have the ability to sense when somebody is burning a metal in their body.
Hmm.
And either you're like in this world, like if you find out that you can burn metal, you're either killed, imprisoned, or enslaved to the kingdom.
Yeah.
So they were enacting their plan towards the end of the book. They go into the sea. He gets surrounded by a bunch of guys, and he's facing an inquisitor. Nobody has ever beaten an inquisitor. Period. Like they're too much.
Yeah.
So he's fighting basically like in this ring like arena with all these guards holding shields so he can't escape. And he happens to be a person who can burn multiple metals.
Yeah.
So what he does is he consumes a ton of copper and iron, and he's fighting and he's like throwing hands with this inquisitor, but while he's fighting, he's pulling and pushing off all the shields. So like he's ping ponging all over the arena, getting hits in, hit in, hit in, hit in, and the way it was written was just so good because it described how that scene would be so perfectly. And I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit! I've never read something that described a fight so well
Yeah.
with the limited resources that it had of him just basically pulling himself at full speed towards a shield, and then as soon as he's about to hit the shield, he pushes off of it, comes with a flying punch, flying kick, some knees, and he ends up killing the Inquisitor,
Yeah.
which is a huge blow to the Empire because nobody has touched an Inquisitor. So he did that purposely to show everybody who's been enslaved and who's escaped and all the rebellion that there is hope.
Yeah.
And then something happens. I won't say it because it's a spoiler, but it's a book from 2006, so fucking read it if you want. So that there's
Yeah.
no spoilers, go read it. The way it ended and where the second book took place is kind of where it drew me out of it. Because like the
Yeah.
fight scene happens and then something major happens, and um so it's like this is also not a spoiler, but the main character, he ended up watching his wife die, and he vowed vengeance against the king and the empire. He finds a girl who thinks she can only I forget which metal it was, but if you burn this metal you can basically charm people,
Yeah.
but it's not like
Oh.
super mind control. It's like you have
Yeah.
slight influence over their emotions to charm them. So like if somebody's really aggressive with you and you burn this metal, that aggression would go way down. And then if the
Hmm.
longer you used it, the more like they start favoring you, like they'll start being more friendly with you. Well, she used
Yeah.
that as a street urchin to, con people out of money. He finds her, and he goes to train, and that's like a
Yeah.
big arc in the whole story of he's like it basically you're a wizard, Harry,
Yeah.
and he trains her to be a metal burner for the rebellion. But there's
Oh.
some spoilers with that, so I'm not gonna say it. I'll tell you
Yeah.
after.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you after, but just to avoid spoilers, I won't say anything. But it's like, yeah, the end of the book went in such a weird, not weird way because like if you reading the book and if you're picking up on the context clues, you can tell where the book is going.
Yeah.
Like you know exactly how it's going to end, but it's still kind of like, oh, why did it end like that? And then I
Yeah.
tried to read the second book and I just found uh that female lead to just be terrible
Right.
because her whole thing is like, I hate the empire is made my childhood shitty, all this other stuff, nobles are garbage, and she falls in love with the noble
Yeah.
who like he's a good guy, like he hates the nobles and the empire in general and helps them with their goals, but it's just like she changes so much within, I think like the story took like 3 or 6 months,
Yeah.
and after meeting him she's changed so completely, and it's just like, that was an unwarranted character change.
Yeah. It's kind of like how what happened to the Uraraka effect. Well, the Uraraka effect's not a real thing. I'm sure it's someone else, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, there's something that changes. Like for example, she realizes she has a crush on Deku, and then her character kind of just
Dies.
dies. Yeah.
Like That's one of the problems. Like some people do have problems with writing like that, but I've always said, like, it may sound bad in the context of how I'm about to say it, but
Yeah.
women should only write for women and men should only write for men. And
Um,
like I put like a asterisk on that, right? When I say that,
yeah.
because it's so weird when like a guy writes a female character who has no experience about anything. So like in lit RPGs,
Yeah.
the thing is like it's a guy, powerful guy, he's the main character. He gets hot girl.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the hot girls are always just written as hot girls. Like they could be
Right.
badass when he first meets them, but like not even a few chapters into the book, she's just like a damsel in distress at that point.
Well,
Who
I
who
feel like
mhm.
that's more of a reflection on the writer than it is the
the
gender
problem
of the writer.
the problem is that most, and by most I mean like 80 to 90% of lit RPGs is written like that. And
Okay.
it goes with the same thing with female writers when they start writing male characters a lot of the time, especially in like it's all part of the male and female fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And when it's like too much into the male fantasy and too much into the female fantasy, they start messing up with characters. Um,
Yeah.
so I am currently writing a lit RPG,
Right.
and it's been a fucking nightmare. Like it's just been a nightmare because I keep having new ideas and I'm like, oh, this would work better than this or this would work better than that. So I've not actually gotten to the writing part. The thing is that when you're writing, you need to have a strong main character, and I'm not talking about strength, like or power. You have to have a strong main character, like with a good written personality that has room to grow. Like
Hmm.
character growth needs to be a thing for proper writing. If your character is one way at the beginning of the book and stays the same at the end of the book, you failed in developing the character. Now, if it's a short form writing, like if it's like a short story or something like that, it doesn't necessarily need to have too much character growth. But if it's a long form, so typically books, when reading them, are like 13 to, depending on how you write or how much you write, it's 13 to like 28-hour long things. And if your
Yeah.
characters are just bland, non-existent, it's like it's not a good thing. Now, with main characters you need to write properly, but also your supporting cast need to be strong in the sense of personality too. You can't have bland side characters. Um, there's perfect examples of this, and it ties to manga.
Yeah.
So Vegeta is one of the best examples of character development and character growth to exist.
Yeah. Oh no, I disagree.
One of the best.
Yeah.
Um, Vegeta went from a bloodthirsty monster to a loving father and husband over the
Yeah.
course of Dragon Ball. Um, a terrible example is fucking Shinji from Evangelion.
Well, okay, but those like I mean, yeah, when we start talking about certain like genres of things, there's an expectation of there, but
Mm-hmm.
that whole ideology kind of eliminates slice of life or even those kinds of
Well,
thrillers that like character growth isn't necessary to a plot as long as the plot is solid. I mean, yes, character growth is good,
Mm-hmm.
but if the plot isn't compelling, then the
Oh no, you definitely
you know
need a good plot. I'm not saying it doesn't. And it also depends on your reader and what genre you're in. But good character growth can help develop a plot. Um, Having a character's morals change and ideology change can help further develop a plot. Because if you have a good plot but have bland characters, nobody's gonna want to read the plot. Like,
yeah, I guess it
mm-hmm.
well then I guess if we want to talk about it, it comes down to your market. I mean,
Yeah, and
because
personal preference.
yeah. Um because I know that at least from the writer's perspective of a group that I'm in, is that as writers we create we create problems. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We create problems that somebody has to solve eventually or nobody solves. But the thing is, there is a what makes a compelling story is that there is a problem of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so yeah, you definitely don't want to have like bland characters per se, but that's also not to say bland characters don't have a place either. And sometimes some of the best stories are because when we think of Lord of the Rings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Frodo isn't really that impressive of a guy. I'm gonna just be real.
Yeah, facts.
He's not, but he has the story is compelling because he has the problem is the ring.
Yeah,
The ring has to go to Mordor, and along the way, it's like the characters. I mean, he has kind of some character development, but it's more like
yeah.
the characters around him
Yes, the supporting
have more
cast for
development.
Lord of the Ring is what carries Lord of the Ring.
Yeah,
So if both sides were but basically Frodo, then Lord of the Rings would just be terrible, like completely terrible. I'm not
yeah,
really too much into Lord of the Rings, but I play D&D. I'm a DM, so
yeah.
writing and creating stories is kind of my thing in general.
Hmm.
Where I play, and I don't know how many people will listen to this that do or do not know about Dungeons and Dragons. With Dungeons and Dragons, as a DM, the dungeon master, I create the world that the supporting cast of the players. And if the supporting cast doesn't carry, the main cast can't carry either. So my
Yeah,
my main thing is that I love world building. Um,
yeah.
that's what my lit RPG mostly is going to focus on, is the world building, the living, breathing world that exists outside of the main character. Like,
Right.
the main character is important and all because he's the main character, but I like the aspect and the knowledge of that the world is constantly moving. Like, the world does not wait on the main character to do something.
Yeah.
And that kind of like some of the games that I play that I've learned that I don't like that a lot. For example, like Skyrim.
Yeah.
Skyrim is a fun game, but it has a horrible problem of what most games do because you're the main character. The game doesn't progress unless you progress.
Right.
So my thing that I love in a story is the world itself. Like, the main character can be whatever, but if the world is turning and the world is moving, it also helps the main character, right?
Yeah.
Um, for the examples that I hate is like anime reference is Evangelion. Evangelion is an amazing anime,
Hmm. Hmm.
but Shinji is the worst fucking character to ever exist ever. I don't know if
Man.
everybody's seen the memes, but like Shinji getting the fucking robot. Shinji is the worst. And depending on which Evangelion you're watching, well, it's even worse.
Oh shoot, there are multiples.
Oh yeah, there's multiple versions of Evangelion and like different uh points in it. So like I think there's like 6 versions right now. And like in one of the original ones, Shinji oh, he mm,
Mm-hmm.
so with one of the girls that gets into Evangelion, she gets hurt in the hospital. She's bullied Shinji the entire time that they've known each other.
Is that the redhead girl?
Yes.
Okay.
Asuna. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, I think.
It's like Asuna. But there's a scene that should never have existed, and I hate it. I hate it so much. It's like she's in the hospital, she's unconscious, and like he's saying some stuff, and then he does a thing that is like, ugh. So
Hmm.
he JOs on her unconscious body.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why? But it's like you start like throughout the thing you understand kind of why he's the way he is and why his father is, but he's still such a terrible fucking character. Um,
Well,
then there's that thing is like there's bland characters and bland side characters that exist for
yeah.
the prominent example, Dragon Ball the original,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Krillin. Krillin only existed to make Goku look better.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
most people don't know, with Dragon Ball was going to be canceled because
Oh.
nobody liked Goku.
Yeah. I mean,
He's like he
yeah,
was
as a
such a
standalone
norm.
character, he's like a
So
huh?
they yeah. So they he's just Goku is bland, a shonen character that just exists. He's the good guy, but nobody liked him. So they created Akira Toriyama created Krillin as a worse version of Goku to make Goku look better.
Yeah.
When you have to do that, that's a sign.
Yeah.
That's a sign of poor character development. Um, and in lit RPGs, and a lot of
Yeah.
my thought process is because of this genre that I specifically read, and the isekai version of this that I read. Right.
Yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, isekai is transported to a different world. Somebody dies in our world and gets transported to another world, mostly a fantasy slash video game esque world.
Yeah.
Lit RPGs specifically are people die in our world and end up in a game world, like period. Like
Yeah.
one of the last games they were playing gets turned into that, or for one of the ones that I read called Elemental Summoner, it was literally God was like, "Hey, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. You should have not been there. So you have a choice: either go here or go to this fantasy world that I'm trying to fix."
Yeah.
And he gets sent to the fantasy world. Da 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 da. And one of the problems with lit RPGs is that the main character for most of them is just the fantasy of being a strong character.
Right.
They're overpowered, they get their powers, they're overpowered. Basically nothing can stop them, and like the book is just 8 hours of him kind of doing whatever the fuck he wants. And they
Yeah.
introduce female characters, but the problem is like I literally say like these guys who write these books have never seen a woman
Hmm.
or been in the same room as a woman because the way they write for them is just terrible. It's always like a lot of the times in the books when they first describe it, you when you read a book, you have to describe the character.
Yeah.
And most of these books are first person, so it's the main character describing these people, and it's always like the first things is that's out of their mouths is like how hot the female character is,
Yeah.
and it's just like tone that down a little bit. A different lit RPG that I read was I'm like I believe that this was written by a 16-year-old, but it's not because I seen the author's age and I'm just like, you don't have a lot of experience with women, do you? And I don't even mean sexual experience. I just mean experience around women in general. Like it was so bad because it was like the main character got transported to a pirate world, ends up in the brig captured, and
Yeah.
the right hand, who was a female, comes in and it's like interrogating him, and it's like he doesn't know what's going on because he just got dropped into this world.
Yeah.
So they're like, you're obviously working for blah blah blah. Where are their forces? Where's this, that, and the third? And he's like, I don't know. And she's like, you're lying. Picks him up, one-handed, by the way. She literally
Yeah.
reaches down, grabs him by the collar, and lifts him up off his feet. Which I do have to say, hot.
Yeah.
I love me my strong women. But like she's like basically, hey, there's the guy. We have the thing called the drill. And it's like a hand drill that they use to bore into the side of the heads of, their captures. And she's describing this, like how painful it's going to be and how bloody it's going to be. And the first response is that he looks down and can see into her shirt, which is open.
Yeah.
And he's just instantly horny. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, this situation, like, I understand the scare boner. That is a thing.
Hold on, my headset disconnected for a second.
Yay!
Yeah. Go ahead and repeat the very last thing you were saying because I got the end of that sentence. I am so sorry.
Yeah, she's holding him up, threatening him with this big ass drill that has spikes, and like it's a horrible, horrible weapon. And like he looks down at her and can see into her shirt. So he sees cleavage, and then he's instantly horny, out of his mind, and can't function properly. Because her breasts are so massive and bouncy. And I'm just like, he stop. Hey, I hate it.
Well,
there's a lot of me, like a lot of this comes from I don't like the virgin archetype.
oh, see, I love that, especially when we're talking about Call of Duty. Like my absolute favorite trope is Virgin John Price. Like I breathe that. Like I inject it into my veins. I'm not even gonna lie.
I like the thing is like there's a certain aspect of it that is endearing.
Yeah.
Like an inexperienced person being like I oh this is like this is like exposing myself. So like like a virgin character getting manipulated. In fantasy, I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah.
In real life, that's kind of you need to not do that. But But in fantasy, I enjoy that thing. I love characters being manipulated and falling for the dumbest shit where you're reading and you're just like, how could you even fall for that?
Yeah.
So the virgin the male virgin who gets manipulated by the older sexy lady, it's like, okay, I get that. But it's like the trope of the virgin who's always horny all the time, who can't control himself when he sees breast or a butt or a pretty face, and it's like, no, that's not how that works all the time.
Yeah. Not
everybody thinks with the nether regions. Like I don't I don't like that. And then it's like when these people write, for example, a sex scene, for example, it's always the worst possible way that it could go down.
Yeah.
It's so obviously this is going on YouTube, so I can't say too much. Now,
Yeah.
if we were to record it on Blue Twitch,
Yeah.
then we could talk about it more. But like the TLDR for the one scene from Elemental Summoner is that the plot of Elemental Summoner is that the main character, he gets shot for his boss, but he wasn't
Yeah.
supposed to be there. God is like, hey, I fucked up. Actually,
Yeah.
you fucked up. You weren't supposed to be there. I specifically gave you a cold. I gave you the flu, to be honest. So you
Yeah.
would stay away because this was your boss's time. He was going to die in a robbery.
Yeah.
And he just happens to go in to do whatever because he has a boring life. He ends up getting killed, gets put into the world. He becomes the elemental summoner. He meets an elf girl, and he himself makes the joke when he's introducing himself to her is that, hey, I'm the elemental summoner, meaning in this world he can use all the four elements to cast spells. And she flips out. She hears the name and just loses her shit, tries to kill him on the spot.
Yeah.
And bounces. He's like, what was that about? He meets and saves her later. And they start talking, and he finds out that the elemental summoner was an actual thing. But like the context clues for the manga, not the manga, the lit RPG in the story, there was a former elemental summoner that appeared 10,000 years ago in this world. Not 10,000 years in our world, but 10,000 years in their world.
Yeah.
And he made humans the dominant race and basically made any other race of people, the beast folk, made them garbage. So humans believe that they're higher than everybody, and they see like elves, dog people, cat people as worse than pigs.
Yeah.
Like they're just trash. So he talks to her about this and learns that it was the element. He was known as the elemental summoner, and that's why she freaked out and tried to kill him. And that's like a running joke throughout the books. Where it's like he meets somebody new and they're like, "You're a human. Why are you with these beast people? It doesn't make no sense. Confusion. Oh, I'm the elemental summoner." Instantly tries to kill him.
Yeah.
And the context clues in that story, it was Hitler.
Yeah.
The elemental summoner was actually Hitler.
Oh, like actually, like
actually Hitler, like the god in this world. When Hitler died, he sent him over to this world.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, because I'm reading it and it's like these weird contexts. It's like he was highly racist. He only cared for certain humans with certain appearances, and it's like, oh, it's Hitler. Oh, this guy was Hitler.
Yeah.
It took me 2 books to figure that out, but it's like the author spaced it out properly so that you wouldn't get it right away.
Yeah.
But in like when I was getting to the point was like the first, lovemaking scene in the book, she is very confused because he wants to. He's like, but you're human, and human don't even see us as, more than dirt. But he does it with her, and then it's like right away at the start, she climaxes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that I'm like, He put it in and she climaxed. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
Uh,
As someone who has had a lot of partners, that's not how that works. That's not how that works.
As someone who's probably had just as many, if not more, sometimes it do work that way. It's not often, but sometimes it do work that way.
I don't believe that. I don't. As soon as it
Depends on the fore. It depends on the foreplay.
There was
foreplay is
none.
everything.
There was none.
Oh,
He literally laid her down, slid in, and she climaxed.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not how that works. Like with the foreplay, yes, getting stimulated and building that up, and then that happening, yes, but not from the get go, not from the start. And I'm like, no, that's not how you write it. And then it's every time. It's every time in this book that happens. And I'm just like, You read a lot of erotica, don't you, sir? you.
Yeah.
I see where this is going. And then it's like I had to stop a few books because it was just like, it was so bad. It was like, I make a joke when I go into people's streams and I say, that's it, stand back, I'm gonna commit a misogyny.
Yeah.
But I don't do anything. I just like the reaction. But that's what the book that I read was. It was like, hold on, we're going to commit misogyny, period. And then it goes in.
Yeah.
Exactly. Hold my beer. You haven't seen anything yet. And I'm just like, ooh, no. I'm surprised I made it. I think I made it 7 chapters. So the way I read books is through Audible.
Yeah.
Because I can't actually physically read a book. Because as soon as I start, I get very tired. And I learned that's an ADHD thing. Yeah. On some people with ADHD, that happens a lot. And I've always had that throughout my life. Unless, like, I can read manga perfectly fine. I can read comics perfectly fine. But when it's just like a wall of text,
yeah,
I get actually physically tired.
Yeah.
So Audible, the books that I get when I was subscribed, I have to subscribe at some point again, but it's like with work, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
To listen to a 12-hour book.
Right.
But I buy collections or omnibus. So they'll have like when you subscribe to Audible, you get tokens every month.
Right.
And you can use the tokens to redeem books. A chunk of books have the full collections. 3 to 5 books in the whole series, and you can use the 1 token to get all those books, and that's typically how I read series. I was reading this 4-book series, and I made it to chapter 7 before I was like, I don't like anything that's going on in this book. Like the whole premise is like, it's not a lit RPG, it's just a regular fantasy, but on this certain island, the goddess, basically it's Aphrodite, makes deals with men when they turn of age. I forget what the of age is, and she's like, hey, I'll grant you 1 wish, but you have to do something for me. So some people get magic, some people get wealth, some this, but the thing is that what you have to pay is that you have to impregnate women.
Oh.
You have to bear children.
Yeah.
A certain amount, and it's like they don't have to give birth. You just have to impregnate a certain amount of women, and you get your gift. So this one guy shows up, and he's talking he's seeking revenge for his village being burnt to asunder by another mage. So he comes to the islands
Yeah.
like, hey, the goddess is going to give me, I want to make a deal with the goddess. So he has to spend some time there. He meets with the locals. You find out that like the goddess gives you a stick, and the stick has branches. And the number of branches means how many, children you have to impregnate, you have to impregnate with women. And typically, it's 1 to 4. He shows up, he talks to the goddess, he's like, I just want magic. Destructive magic. And she's like, cool, bet. Here you go, here's your stick. And it has like 36 branches on it. And you find out that she's having people do this because once she embeds the gift to you, you will only have female children, but those female children will be Valkyries.
Interesting.
And those Valkyries are used by the goddess for her war against the elves, I believe. The elves are worshipping a demon god, and she's been fighting this demon god forever, and the elves are helping them, and it's just like, it's like, that's interesting. It's kind of weird.
It's an interesting concept.
It's kind of weird, but it's interesting. But when I got to the point where he started building his harem, so he gets some woman comes to pick him up. She's a cute redhead. Takes him to the temple. The temple priestess is just a drop dead gorgeous MILF.
Yeah.
And, basically they instantly fall in love with him for some reason. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. They just fall in love with him. And it is like that part, this part, and then the very next part leading up to it is what really killed me from the story. So they got attacked by the elves, and they went through the secret tunnel to end up at the main temple of the church. Like, it's a super underground passage that's shorter in the tunnel than it is outside. So sort of like, it's like a magic tunnel. So they're going through the tunnel, they get attacked, and they're talking, and it's like, how did they know that we were here? And they're like, I don't know. And then the Milfy character is like, she, puckers her lips, puts her fingers to her lips, and was thinking like a bimbo does.
Yeah.
Like, she had the bimbo look on her. And the first thought in this man's head, and the author wrote it, like, he put pen to paper and was like, she looks really cute with her confused puckered lips. I wonder how that's going to feel on me. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Mate, you're in a serious situation. Is that the first thing you think about? Sex is the first thing you think about? You nearly died. Yeah. You literally got your ass beat. Like, I read this man getting whooped.
Yeah.
And he escaped by the skin of his teeth, and the first thing he thinks about is like, that was weird that the elves knew exactly where we were, at what time we were, and when we went to sleep. Not like, there might be a spy. No, it's like, I want fellatio now. And then it leads into the temple with the Valkyries, and the Valkyries are all sexy because they're Valkyries, which I understand.
Yeah.
They're mostly naked. I believe they didn't have tops for Valkyrie reasons. And it started the head of the temple didn't like the Milfy character. Like, they go back and they hate each other, and she's like, I'm going to take your man because I find him super attractive. And I'm just like, what? Yeah. Wait, what? And then they start fighting over him about who can give him the best sex. And it's like, yep, I'm done here. And that was 7 chapters in, and I'm just like, ugh. And every time I go back to it, trying to listen to it, because I'm like, I bought it so I might as well finish it. No, it's the
Yeah,
same part that I get to, and I'm like, I can't skip past this because I'm gonna miss too much.
yeah,
And then it's like and then it goes to the other side with the female fantasy part of it, where my my best friend, she reads all the really smutty stuff, right?
yeah,
And a lot of it is werewolf related
yeah. That's the good shit.
because
I like
she believes she's not a furry, but I'm a furry and I know a furry when I see a furry.
yeah,
So she's reading it and it's just like, hmm, hmm. A lot of the people who write these use the same Wikipedia for werewolves that doesn't
well,
exist. Like the Wikipedia for this werewolf genre is just like, that's not how werewolves work. And I know taking liberties in a fictional sense is, you're right as the writer,
yeah,
but when every single story has the same premise of what werewolves are that aren't werewolves, it kind of bugs me.
yeah,
So like one of the things is that they, in these stories, there's always the alpha of the pack, which werewolf
yeah,
stuff, werewolf shit. But there's also a Luna who is bound to the alpha by the moon goddess. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, that's that's kind of weird, but okay, we're gonna go with that. And then
Uh-huh.
it's always the Luna, which is the main character, is always secretly a hybrid or an ancient werewolf.
Yeah,
And then there's the wolf spirit in her who she always talks to.
yeah.
And I'm like, when did this happen? When was this board meeting? When did we decide that this was going to happen? And I'm like, I'm all for the liberties, but I'm like, every single story is exactly like this. And it's like, oh, they're bound by the moon goddess completely, unless the
Well,
story says differently.
but here's the thing about it though, is that's how like characterizations evolve because when we were it okay, so we're gonna talk about the Omegaverse for a second. Like if you look at the basis of how it started,
Uh huh.
it really was like impreg. Like it was a bunch of like Fujoshis who wanted to get together who were like, yeah, let's make these dudes fuck and they can get pregnant. Okay. But now because it was part of a kind of a yaoi drama
Yeah.
now or yeah genre there's whole world building based around it. For example, in some alternate universes now, because back when it first started, before it was kind of dubcon in favor of the alphas, the omega being the weaker one. But now there are some AUs where that is flip flopped. There are some AUs where it's like alpha alpha relationships, omega omega relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's evolved. Like there are um so when we're talking about the fantasy genre, there's a sort of evolution to it. Granted, I'm still not down for sparkly vampires, but I'm not going to knock people who are. Um
You don't have to. I
because
will.
that's just it because it's all in flux. It's like but I kind of get it too because there comes a point for some people where it's like, okay, this is too much. For example, this is the main example I have. I know we don't really talk about this particular person's stuff anymore
Mhm.
because she decided to die on a certain hill. uh
Listen, you
uh
gotta respect it.
no, no, we
No,
don't
not
we
not
don't
the
respect.
not this not respect the context of it, but the respect of, hey, I choose to die on this hill. Not a lot of people will do
uh
that, but it's not a good thing.
No, especially when we're talking about trans rights. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, no. This is
absolutely
this
no.
is icky. Um, so but it's the since this is like the story I know the best because
Hmm.
it was popular before she opened her mouth and
Yeah.
it's it's kind of like how people watch Harry Potter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you accept it, Hogwarts, the fantastical, like stairways moving and all that stuff. And then when you get to Fantastic Beasts, there is a certain group of people who are like, yeah, no, I don't find the briefcase believable.
Yeah.
But
There's,
when you think
mm-hmm.
about it, it's like everything up until this point, like staircases moving in like a castle is perfectly acceptable, but having a bunch of animals in a tiny suitcase is where you draw the line. There are just certain lines that people draw when it comes to fantasy, and
Yeah.
so it does become difficult to push those boundaries when something becomes um, an accepted kind of practice
Yeah.
of things. So yeah, I can kind of see how uh pushing the boundary isn't some people's thing, but then it's like, well, those boundaries are going to get pushed, and now we're talking about, because there are other things too, like it's like, well, if we're talking about secondary sex, what about male female relationships, what about this politics, like it can grow from one
Yeah.
singular thing.
Oh yeah. It's
um
it's it's in that genre. It's just like I respect everybody's opinion on what they like and don't like, but it's like
yeah,
that part of it. It's like I can't, like, personally for me, like I'll never tell you like what you're reading. Like I make fun of my best friend for it. I make fun of her all the time for the shit she reads.
yeah,
Right? But I never like damn her for it.
yeah.
Like,
Well, and that's just it. Like the whole werewolf thing, like that's your, what I was getting at is that's your briefcase.
yeah. For
Is for
me,
stories.
that's like, so with werewolves in me, it's like I'm the traditionalist when it comes to werewolves. Now, if we add more
Yeah,
stuff to werewolves, I'm perfectly fine with that. But
yeah,
when you start going above and beyond, I fall out of it, right? Like
yeah,
I fall out of the lore for it, and I'm just like, okay. First of all, that's where I am. I was like, first of all, no,
yeah,
you stop that right now. When it comes to certain
yeah,
type of character tropes, I'm definitely like that because in a lot of the werewolf stuff, there's always the, like, the alpha is the always the super protective, like damn near terrifying type of protective, like
yeah,
straight up yandere levels of protective, and it's like that's really creepy. Why do people find that attractive? And it's like people find that attractive. I can't I can't process it, but mm, mm,
well, and that's kind of, well, because it's the fantasy of it. That's kind of like, I feel like there is another uh uh video essayist who kind of covered this, but it's like
mm-hmm.
there are certain aspects of fantasy that just allow you to explore uh, certain things, but just because you like them fictionally doesn't
Yes,
necessarily mean like you're into it.
to it in real
Uh,
life, which I
yeah,
can, I could separate that moment of disbelief between the two. Because there's a lot of things in fantasy that I like, but as soon as it gets applied to real world, I'm just like, ew, that's really gross.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Which is like,
Um,
keep if you keep it in fantasy, it's fine to an extent, unless it's really bad. Don't even fantasize about it.
yeah. Um, well, and it kind of comes down to too. Sometimes people use their writing to kind of
Ex-
go back and address
yeah,
traumas and things like that, because consensually, because the thing about reading and writing is that you can consent to whether or not you can continue to engage in such a
yes,
thing, um, which is why I think writing as a, I mean, obviously, yeah, there are some boundaries you just don't cross, um, for sure. But that's kind of one of those things where it's like you can choose to read it or you can choose to stop reading it.
yeah,
That's what makes it better than kind of reality is you
yes.
can step out
So
of that.
it's like, yeah, it's all about that. that fantasy part that it's just like it's fine until it's not fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Um, so like the one thing about the werewolf thing that's like the overprotective, I can understand why some people like that, right?
Yeah.
They have that to feel wanted, to feel appreciated, to feel like somebody really cares about you. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I get that. But when I read that the female character basically brushed past the guy and the main male lead fucking loses his shit because another male was within her presence or even dared to talk to her, I'm like, that is, hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, ugh. I think it's because my thing is like, as a person, I, um, I'm, I'm by nature polyamorous,
Yeah.
and I don't get jealous. Period.
Yeah.
And it's not like a specific thing about polyamory because a lot of people who are poly are very different. Some people will
Yeah.
get jealous, some people will not. So you can't just assume that everybody's like me. But I am a
Yeah.
very open love person.
Yeah.
And I do not feel jealousy at all. I
Yeah.
cannot physically feel jealousy. I cannot physically feel envy. And it's just like it's so confusing to me when like a main character is gets so jealous that they fight somebody over something.
Yeah.
So when I read that in like fantasy, especially werewolf stuff, it's like that's really weird. Mainly because I cannot relate to it at all.
Yeah.
It's also like embarrassment. I cannot feel embarrassment at all. Like those
Right.
things, like that's like a part of my personality that is broken. Where it's like
Yeah.
shame, embarrassment, and jealousy, I cannot feel.
Yeah.
So when I read it and it's like described to me, it's so mind boggling that it's like people get to this point.
Yeah.
So when it's like the main characters get jealous over this or that or this or that, and it's like, ugh, that doesn't translate properly. So I
Yeah.
feel like a level of disgust when it comes to that. I'm not disgusted at people, but that
Yeah.
emotion, because growing up I've always seen jealousy, and jealousy never leads to anything good.
Yeah. No.
Like it never. Like envy on the other hand can lead to good. Sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. But if you're
Yeah.
envious of somebody and what they have, some people will strive to get there, right?
Yeah.
It'll make you more productive. If you like, if you're an artist and you see somebody's art is better than yours, it can drive you to be a better artist because
Yeah.
you'll spend more time practicing or this or that and this. But jealousy never leads to anything good.
Yeah.
And when it's like when main characters get super jealous over something, it's a very turn off in reading for me. So one of her stories was, um, the story falls into the D&D curse. So
Yeah.
in D&D, a lot of female players, and it's one of the weirdest thing that I've noticed. A lot of female players, when they make their characters, will always have them have the worst backstory possible.
Oh yeah.
Like it was always they were enslaved, they were beaten, their family was killed in front of them, they were tortured, this, that, and the third. And this character in this book was exactly like that. She was a werewolf. Oh, she was a silver-haired wolf, and she
Yeah.
was bought by a slave trader. And the slave trader beat and abused her every day, beat her with silver whips, cut her with silver knives, and would shoot her in her legs with silver bullets.
Yeah.
Like it would graze her legs and da da da, causing her pain, and then have her fight in a a death arena basically.
Yeah.
Ever since she was 6 years old, and I'm like, okay, that's going a little too far, but go on. And then eventually
I'm
she. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm giggling at you because I'm like my current AU with soap.
Yeah,
I do I often ask myself, why do I hurt him?
that's
Why
what
do
a
I
lot of
hurt him like
authors
this?
do. Authors
Yeah.
hurt their main
Uh,
characters. So
yeah.
the story goes, it's like she managed to escape, but like in her escape, she was also captured somehow and then sold off to a random alpha.
Yeah.
And when she gets there, the alpha has a Luna and some other stuff, and she's just like, I'm here to kill, point me to whatever I have to kill, this, that, and the third.
Yeah.
Then the alpha's Luna turns out to be a spy from another pack, and she just bounces.
Yeah.
Right? Because she got found out, so she bounced. And then the one of the things that I hate in these stories is the second chance mate. Once you lose your original mate assigned by the goddess will sometimes, maybe, if she's feeling generous, give you a second mate.
Yeah.
Because that shit does not happen all the time. Like, a lot of the side characters lost their mates and have never gotten anybody else.
Yeah.
So they're forever alone. So it's on the whim of the goddess. So she becomes his second chance mate. And now she's only known battle, hatred, and bloodlust.
Yeah.
A new girl shows up as like a childhood friend of the alpha, and they're close, and she's feeling jealousy for the first time, and she's like, I don't understand this feeling. And like she specifically like told him, oh, I'm your mate, that doesn't mean I'm going to love you. But like instantly when another girl gets introduced, she instantly loves the male lead and instantly feels jealous. And I'm just like, that was quick.
Yeah.
And what was like this, the writer for this particular story, I could tell that she just came from like a really rough breakup for her.
Yeah.
Because they capture the spy and what the main character does, and I'm like, this was definitely a 16-year-old, 17-year-old whose boyfriend left them for another girl with bigger breasts. Because the scene that happens is like she cuts off breasts.
Yeah.
Specifically the breasts.
Oh,
Like,
that's like some serial killer shit, bro.
Yeah, and I'm just like, you have a thing against big breasts. Your boyfriend left you. Your boyfriend did leave you. That's rough. That's rough. And I'm like, okay,
that's rough,
cool. You could put that in your story, but that tells a lot about you.
Yeah.
Like the way somebody writes, you can tell a lot about that person, especially when it starts getting really weird.
Yeah.
Like for Harry Potter, an example, Hermione basically is a self-insert character.
Yeah.
Like there's no way around that.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
But it's like, why are you self-inserting yourself as a child?
I mean,
I get the wanting, like, writing yourself as younger or older, especially if you're doing a self-insert, but that young, that's a little.
focus or I'm not gonna just. I mean, you have to start somewhere, and we were all that young at some point.
The books were for kids, like it happens.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's like, oh shit, man. Me, as I'm developing my story, I'm learning a lot about myself too. But also, I'm learning that the main character is not a self-insert for me, which is strange for me. Specifically when I write anything, because I come from MySpace era of role playing.
Yeah.
So it's always, it's always first person. I'm like, I specifically need the story to be third person because I want to develop the world. Like,
Right.
because I've read so many isekai, I've read so many light novels, lit RPGs, and I know what it takes to, for me personally, for me to get invested into a story, and that's where I'm writing from.
Yeah.
And the world is one of the most important aspects to me because, like, if the main character is dicking off somewhere over here, a
Yeah.
lot of the times the world stops for the main character to do whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
So, and I learned this from my style of DMing in Dungeons and Dragons, is that everything you do, something is going to happen elsewhere.
Yeah.
So for my first campaign, my party, they were going to investigate rumors of goblin attacks on this village,
Yeah.
and they ran into a fight on the way, which is typical D&D stuff. It's funny because they rolled so bad that they almost died in their first fight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what do you guys want to do? They're like, we want to rest to get our HP back. And I'm like, that's going to take like 3 hours, right? And they're like, yeah, we understand. I'm like, no, you understand that 3 hours will pass. And they're like, yeah, sure. So they did. And by the time they got to the village, it was already on fire.
Fire. Yeah.
So if they had just gone straight there, they would have met with people. They could have rested there and then dealt with the goblin attack. But because they waited so long, things were already in motion.
Yeah.
So that's like what I love in my stories, when the world is moving, you know, perpendicular to whatever the main character is doing, because the world is not going to wait for you.
Yeah.
And it's like more and more that I write, the more characters I'm building, and the more I'm like, huh, this is an interesting aspect of myself that I did not know I liked, or this seems really familiar to me. Oh,
Yeah.
oh no, I have some trauma that I need to deal with.
Yeah. And it sometimes it just it does come down to that it's like, oh, hey, uh yeah, and you kind of discover like certain buttons that you didn't have
Mm-hmm.
um as you're exploring things. So yeah, yeah, I see. I
Other than my, I'm not gonna say this here. I'm gonna tell you after about me. I discovered something, and I'm like, oh no, I done fucked up.
um
But when I'm very critical when it comes to writing, because when I'm reading and writing, just like in writing in general, reading and writing at the same time, I'm very critical of it because there's so much time invested into it,
yeah.
and I can't get that time back, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
like if I'm reading a book and I'm like 6 hours in, and then the story just goes to shit, I'm mad.
Yeah.
Like I'm mad because I'll never get that time back.
Well, yeah, no.
And it's like if I wasn't listening to this book, I could have been listening to something else, or I could have been doing something else. So like
Yeah.
I have very specific taste. Everybody has very specific taste. I'm never going to shit on anybody for liking what they like unless it's really bad.
Yeah.
Like, if it's bad, then you shouldn't like it to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, people's taste in writing, I won't, I won't shit on you too much. If you're a friend, I'm going to make fun of you because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tease you. I'm gonna bully you a little bit, but I'm never gonna shame you. Like seriously, shame you for liking a certain trope or liking a certain genre or liking this, that, and the third, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will get on people for liking yaoi or yuri, and it's just like I I'm pansexual, so I don't care
Yeah.
about like stuff like that. If I like it, I like it. It's whatever at this point. But if you
Yeah.
start reading like super tropey shit, then we're gonna have a serious talk.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a serious talk. Like, who hurt you?
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, Nagi. Who hurt you? Because
Life.
I've read some things. I've read some things. Have I read it all? No, but I've read some of it. Who hurt you,
Oh,
Nagi?
good. I
It's like,
mean, yeah,
life hurt me.
life, life. Yeah, that's the best explanation I have right now.
Oh god, it's so. Oh, oh. It's. And if anybody's listening, read books, get Audible,
Yeah,
listen to books.
yeah.
So like the hobby episode turned into just talking about the hobby of
Books.
reading and writing in general, which is fine.
Yeah,
Which again, like I think we said this in the first episode that that's kind of how like our conversations are going to go.
yeah.
We open with a
The
broad
ADHD
statement
in it.
and then like completely divert into one specific area.
Yeah,
And writing was this one. If so reading what is it, one of the toughest things that I find about writing is trying to find my writing style.
yeah,
I'm a person that is a jack of all trades, so I can
yeah,
pick up a lot of things but I can't master a single thing.
yeah,
And one of my problems is that I can't take influences, I just end up copying.
yeah,
So my problem is like I don't want to copy somebody's writing style because I definitely want to find my own. But it's really hard. And I think that's what's like the main thing that's holding me back from starting my book is
yeah,
that I'm not sure on how to write it.
yeah,
Like, should it be super descriptive? Should it be less descriptive? Should I be super descriptive in one area or all areas? Should I focus on like specific things here and there? Like
yeah,
I have a great creative mind. The problem is that like
yeah,
I am a I'm an idea starter. Like I'll have the idea, I'll start it, and then I'll just drift off into something else.
yeah,
And this specific story, I do not want to because I've had dreams about this and I need to
yeah,
get it out.
yeah,
So finding a writing style is the most difficult part of it for me. It's just like with
yeah,
artists finding your drawing style. Like how do you want to do it? I
yeah,
like I said, I have the problem of like I end up copying without even trying to copy. And I've used Chat GPT. If anybody needs help with anything, use Chat GPT. Chat GPT is amazing. I with some of the parts of my book that I've been storyboarding and stuff like that, getting down
yeah,
extra details here and there. Chat GPT has helped me so much that I'm like, how did people do this without this program? I'm like, how are stories written without this? Because it helps so much. And it's like the main thing that I'm talking with ChatGPT about is about how to find a writing style. And it's giving me these hints and, you know, steps and all this other stuff. And I was like, have I even really paid attention to writing style before? Like have I paid attention to it subconsciously without noticing it? Uh and you know, the writing style is typically how you find an author or artist you like.
yeah,
and it's like there's uniqueness of how they do certain things. For example, like with me, with artists that I like, especially sometimes comics, mostly anime and manga, mostly manga. I love full lips. Not
Yeah.
a lot of artists do full lips. And I absolutely love them.
Yeah.
And that's what draws me to certain art when I look at it. If I like see your first page in the main, like there's a female character on there with full drawn lips, and not like cartoonish drawn lips, but like they actually have lips, I'll rate it
Yeah.
100%. Uh, and certain writing styles, if you just write like the bare necessity for a character, oh, they have blue eyes and blonde hair, and the basic stuff that I can just see, I typically
Yeah.
won't read that. But the problem is, as I'm writing, I'm learning that I can only describe things so much. Like my brain can
Yeah.
only process something I'm seeing so much. Where like somebody can write a paragraph about like how my desk looks. I can be
Yeah.
like, oh, there's a monitor with a keyboard, a mat, some other stuff on there. But like some people can just
Yeah.
go on a paragraph of describing every intricate detail of what's going on. And that's
Yeah.
where I'm stuck trying to find myself.
Yeah.
And it's like
Well,
that.
and
Mhm.
it's not a easy thing to be sure. Um, because it takes time to craft that. Uh,
I'm learning that now, and I wish I learned that like 10 years ago,
yeah.
because I would already have the experience to do so. So like with drawing, I drew for a long time. I just never got better,
Yeah.
right? Like I never got better. And I don't know if I said this in the last episode, but a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, you just have to practice. You just have to practice, and
Yeah.
you'll get there." The problem is that you
Mm,
need some type of talent in it to begin with. Like you have to have a
uh,
very small, because I talked to my wife about this. You have to have a small bit of natural talent to build from. Like you don't have to be
no.
the most talented thing, but you need something to build off of to make it better. I don't have no talent in drawing or art in general. And all the time that I spent on practicing
Yeah.
led nowhere. I spent, I'll tell you, like 15 years of my life drawing anime characters, and nothing came out of it. Like I could barely draw eyes properly, which I'm sad about, but I'm not kicking myself over it too much.
Yeah.
But like there needs to be like a little bit of natural talent to blossom into something from practice. And
Yeah.
I'm not discouraging anybody from trying, because you'll never know if you have talent unless you try.
Well, okay. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
insert right there because I'm one of those people who hates the word talent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of
Which is
those people who
understandable.
hates the word talent because it it kind of negates the work that goes into it, especially when people think about talent. For example, when people say, "Oh, you've played violin for so long, you're so talented." No, no, no. I spent hours crying in a practice room.
Yeah.
Okay, I spent hours
Mm-hmm.
on doing this, and when we start talking about talent, especially when we start talking about sharing your art and being paid for it, it's like, no, like there's a reason why I'm asking for the price that I'm
Yeah.
asking, because the amount of time you spend crafting something and getting good to craft it, like, is just, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I'm not negating the work that is put into it, right? So when I say talent, I don't mean like the natural God given talent, like you're automatically good at something.
yeah,
Like there has to be like a spark in you, right?
yeah,
When I say talent, there has to be something. There has to be like
yeah.
a
The
little,
passion. Yeah,
like a passion, but it also has to be like you have something to blossom into it. Like in my head, I envision it like a seed, right?
yeah,
There has to be a seed of what you're doing, and your practice and effort helps that bloom, and then you craft it into something from your hard work. I'm not
yeah,
saying you have to be good at something right away to, be validated for it, but you have to have some type of little minuscule inkling of being able to do something. That's how people find hidden talents. By trying something,
yeah,
they're just gifted in it in general, not like gifted perfectly where it's like, oh, I can, play this but there's like, it has to be something there. I unfortunately do not have that in most things.
yeah,
And I think it starts with your childhood, right?
yeah.
So like
Oh, definitely.
if you're like if you drew a lot as a child where you were trying to make, let's say, stick figures or little cats and dogs, and
Yeah,
you could do a straight line here or there and something like little wobbly here or there, that's talent. And then as you grow older, you practice and you practice and you practice, you get better, you get better, you get better and better. You build off of something that's already there. Like for me, I didn't have that. I didn't have outlets as a child to explore art.
yeah,
So I could never see any talent that I would have that I could bloom into now. I just liked anime because anime saved my life at one point in time, and I wanted to
yeah,
draw. I wanted to draw a manga, but 15 years of looking at other people's art, doing tutorials, tracing, copying, trying to mimic this, to mimic that, and nothing came out of it. So it's like I didn't have the talent to begin with to blossom into anything, which was disappointing because I put so much time and effort into it. But I am
yeah,
finding other things, like when I realize that I am a jack of all trades. I can pick up anything to an extent,
yeah,
right? I can do almost anything, but not well. I can do it
yeah,
okay, but I don't.
yeah,
And I think that's coming from like my ability to copy things, but like a rough version of the copy. So like, it's a funny analogy. Think of Ditto from Pokemon.
yeah,
Ditto can turn into anything, but it still has its Ditto face.
yeah,
That's kind of what I can do. Like you could
yeah,
definitely, you looking at it, definitely tell it's just a copy, but it's like I can do pretty much anything, but okay and never good enough. So with writing, I realize that I do have some talent because of
yeah,
all the hours of RP that I did back in the day.
yeah,
So I have some level of talent to work off of, but I never really applied it.
yeah,
So being very descriptive for me is very hard. So like if you listen to D&D games and like you have a
yeah,
really really good DM, they can describe a scene where you feel like you're there.
yeah,
I can't do that. I can tell you that you're in a town. I can vaguely describe what's going on, but that's about it.
yeah,
But it is like I know where I can work off of from it, and it's just right now it's really trying to find the time to
yeah,
do that because I have to write more, but it's like I get home from work, I'm fucking tired. I can only be up for about four, depending on when I get back, 4 or 5 hours. And then I have to go to bed,
Yeah,
then wake up, go back to work. Then the weekend happens. Saturday, I'm mostly dead because it's
yeah,
recovering from all the lack of sleep and all the physical labor that I have to do.
yeah. Well, and that's one thing we could probably like address with hobbies, like cycling it back to hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
because um yeah, there are, and it can even, not only can we address it backtrack it that way, but we can also just kind of say bring society into it, in that there are a lot of people, and when we start talking about talent, it's time. And I know for me personally, i could be I could be better at a lot of the things that I do. But when we're talking about getting home from work and basically, you know, adulting,
Yeah.
it can be difficult. It can be difficult.
It is. It really is. Adulting is so hard.
Yeah.
Kids don't grow up.
I
Just
mean, pretty
just don't
much, yeah.
just don't grow up. And with all the adulting and all the stuff, you have to make sure that you get a hobby. Find a hobby. I don't care what it is. Even if you can only spend an hour on it, get a hobby
Yeah.
because you need it for your mental.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah.
You really need it for your mental because
Um, and I do want to add, not all of your hobbies you have to profit from,
no.
because honestly, I don't necessarily want to say what I do for a living that I'm quitting, because I'll kind of dox myself a little bit. But that was a thing where my hobby, I tried to turn into something profitable, and now I hate it.
Yeah. Typically, when you turn something fun into a job, it starts being a lot less fun.
Yeah. And I mean, for some people, they can do that, but apparently I've discovered I am not one of those people.
You just want to do it for fun, and it's like when you have to adhere to a schedule and
Yeah.
certain criteria, and you have to do this, that, and the third, that takes the fun out of the hobby,
Yeah.
then that's an issue. For me, I one of my favorite things to do, I love fighting games. And that goes
Yeah.
into my competitive nature in general. I have been
Yeah.
to a few money tournaments.
Yeah.
It's stressful.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
even if you think it's like, oh, I love the fighting game in general, this is going to be fun, I can make money off it, it's very stressful. Once you turn your hobby into a job,
Yeah.
you have to evaluate how you feel about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, you don't have to, and your hobby doesn't even need to be expensive either.
Yeah.
Like there's certain hobbies like Warhammer that gets very expensive really fast. Card games get expensive really fast.
Yeah.
Um, Collectibles in general can get real expensive real fast.
Yeah.
Um, like I knew somebody when I was younger that collected trains. Model trains and set up in the basement.
Yeah.
Tens of twenties of thousands of dollars he spent on this. You don't have to have an expensive hobby. If you like doing something, just do it.
Yeah.
And there's resources for you to find just like free stuff in general. Um, but yeah, get a hobby to keep your mental. And this is coming from millennials, the most mentally unstable generation to ever exist.
Ooh.
Next to uh, maybe the baby boomers, like somewhere in there.
Those I would say that is the generation of mental deniers.
Fact. No, that's boomers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I
they.
said baby boomers. I was thinking of a completely different generation.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah, I in my head I separated baby boomers from boomers.
Oh, I see. I see.
Not sure why. I think it was just the baby in it. But yeah, we're
Yeah,
completely mentally unstable. We're as adults trying to recapture parts of our childhood. That's why I like that
yeah,
article where they're like, "Oh, millennials are spending so much money on kid things." It's like it's because we didn't have this as a kid, and now we have
yeah,
adult money.
yeah.
We're giant
Like
kids with adult money.
yeah, I sat there one day and I was like, man, because I had bought popsicles for like
Uh
after
huh.
a long time of not having them, and I was like, man, I really want another one. And then I was like, wait, I can have as many of these as I want because
Yes,
I bought them.
that's like me. I sit here, and I'm like, damn, I need to drink water, but there's juice in there,
Yeah,
and instead of drinking regular water, I can have something sweet. Wait, I
yeah,
bought that. That's mine. I can drink
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I don't.
exactly.
I don't have to ask anybody if I can. Should I do it?
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
right.
But am I
But
going?
it's just
Yes.
yeah,
And you know what? I discovered something that I do constantly because with my wife, she can like she'll have a snack, a pack of something that will last her like a week. For
yeah,
me, snacks don't last more than 10 minutes.
yeah.
And I recently found out what that was. It's when I was a
Oh yeah,
kid, I used to have to devour anything or my siblings would take it.
yeah,
So I would have to consume whatever I have in one sitting because if I put it away or put it in the fridge, it's not going to be there the next day.
nope,
So I inhale things like that. And I'm like, you know what? You know you don't have to do that, right? If you put it up right there, it'll be there when you come back to it.
yeah,
It's like that's yours. You bought it with your money. You didn't take no money from nobody. You didn't go to the store for nobody. You went to the store for you. You have it now. That's yours. And I'm just like it hit me like epiphany. I'm just like, oh, oh my god, you're right.
mhm,
You're right, me. That's a great plan, me. We
yeah.
did it. I
We made it.
we made it. But now we're just here. We're struggling, but we're here. So
Yeah,
keep your mentals intact. Hobbies will definitely help you. And
yeah,
it's what was it last month? Wait, was it last month? It was last month. This month was autism awareness,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just
I
just
think I'd remember.
I there's too much. Listen, we have to adult. That's enough.
Yeah,
That's all. That's enough for us. But yeah, keep your mentals intact. Try to keep your mentals intact. I'm not gonna be that person that's like, oh, just get over it, or just think of something else. Because
yeah.
as somebody with
That's not how that
ADHD,
works.
with a lot of friends
Yeah,
with ADHD, and my wife has ADHD, a lot of those things cannot be said like that because it doesn't work that way.
yeah.
I
It
used
does
to hear
not.
that a lot as a child, where it's just like, oh, just get over it, or just stop doing that, or stop doing this. And it's like, that's not how that works. If you have friends, talk with them, you know, have conversations with people, always look for somebody to. There's always people out there to help. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's that's it for me. Do you have anything else,
Yeah.
Nagi?
Um. No, I think we've covered a lot here today.
Hobbies are great. Don't let nobody shame your hobbies unless it's weird. Like, don't
Yeah.
collect your scabs.
Yeah,
Don't,
please don't collect your
please
scabs.
don't collect your scabs. It's unsanitary, and that's like how COVID started. uh,
Oh
I,
Lord.
I, I am. So I am the Lord Tokai. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Tokai. I'm slowly trying to post more and be more of a menace by starting issues with people. Not
Yeah.
necessarily bad issues, just starting shit.
Yeah.
I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv// the Lord Tokai, not Lord Tokai, the Lord Tokai. Um, and I'm on YouTube at Lord Tokai. Nagi? Oh no.
Twitter at a-nagini. You can find me on AO3 and Twitch as they call me Nagi. And what else? But I won't be back until to actual live streaming until May 20th. So just stay tuned for that.
Oh, that's a whole month away.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
You're taking a break.
I
Don't
just need
worry.
to, yeah, yeah.
You're taking the infamous VTuber vacation.
The hiatus.
The hiatus that's supposed to end at certain points,
Yeah.
but sometimes it doesn't end.
Yeah, no, just man.
And then, your company will get your access to your social media and tell them that you're in the hospital, but you're fine. And then fire you.
Yeah. Damn. Damn.
All right. Next week will be Nagi's episode.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And
Um,
if she doesn't know what it is now, we'll figure it out before the next episode. Won't necessarily say
yeah,
it'll be next week because
but the next episode.
the next episode will be Nagi's episode. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's going to be a really deep conversation about something that is going to get me in trouble for saying, I guess.
Oh,
Because
I
I'm a
don't.
problem. I
No, you're
want to
not.
start. I want to start shit. All right, guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you
All
next
right.
time. Bye.
Bye.